And that's a great intro. I hear some mess. Thank you, Kat. That was awesome. What's up, everybody? Hello, DE, Band of Brothers people out there. It's another Tuesday night Principal Chiro broadcast, and brought to you from DE and Band of Brothers, man. We appreciate you being out here. Hope you're having a great week so far. Just coming off a great DE, one of the better ones I've been to. It's incredible. Everybody was saying the same thing. If you weren't there, start looking at Sarasota. So Sarasota is in April 15th to 18th. That is what is it called? The Crown Ravinia, something like that. But great hotel. We love it. And always a good time down in Sarasota. And then Greece has been canceled. There's just not enough open there and able to do it to be able to do anything. So no Greece in July, but we are looking at other things. But there's August 12th to 15th in Atlanta and October 21st to 21st in Atlanta for sure. So those are already set and ready to go and done. So join us. Go to lifede.com and you can register and do all your stuff there, get more information. Our speaker tonight has been around for a long time. He's from New York, graduated from New York Chiropractic College, went down to Florida, built a huge practice, and then decided to come and help out Dr. Sid. Decided to come up to Life University, moved up to Georgia, then became ICA. He was the Florida Chiropractic Society president. Then he was the Georgia Chiropractic Council of Chiropractic GCC president. He was the ICA president. I think those are the three presidencies that he did. And I think, if I remember correctly, that his was either second or third largest membership when the ICA when he was there. He's a Dr. Sid protege, worked hand in hand with him on politics, has helped us. And recently, I don't know if even Katrina knows this yet, has accepted my invitation to come back onto the board of the GCC. Told him we need that experience. We need that political savvy and all the experience that he has to help us do what we need to do. So I appreciate it. He asked, he said, let me think about it. He got up on stage and within 3 minutes decided from the stage, said that he was ready to do it. So we're excited to have Dr. Bobby Braile with us tonight speaking. So with no further ado, go ahead and take it away, Bobby. We appreciate you.
Good evening. Well, welcome and thank you for having me here. This is an honor and a pleasure. Just be upfront about it. When Brian asked me, he did ask me if I'd want to be on the principal call. Now, I'd been on the principal call once before, put on the phone, hung out in my pajamas, sat in front of the computer and talked for a while. I found out an hour ago, or a little more than that this is a video. So I had to all of a sudden scramble to set up the tripod and the camera and find a background, and hopefully the animals in my house don't go off. But I'm happy to be here. And, when I was thinking about it tonight, I was, because I was going over what I was going to say, not necessarily have a new video or anything like that. And I was glad when we set up the background, I have my green books back here. So that worked out okay. But I was thinking about it, and my mind was racing back into like my earliest days in practice. And I remember a number of things relative that kind of stayed fast over the years. Over the years, I've had a lot of friends who were in chiropractic who came to DE early, and then somewhere along the line, they kind of drifted away, and the practices don't resemble anything that they started out with, and the ideals that they started out with, the principle that they started out with. And I was looking for kind of a common theme through that. And I realized kind of what was taking place. When I first opened my practice, I can remember clearly, we opened up and back in 1978, I was 6 years old back then. No, we opened a practice and we opened it. I had no idea how to use insurance or anything like that as far as a practice goes. I opened my own practice, solo practitioner, didn't work for anybody, didn't really intern with anybody. And so I opened my own practice up, and I didn't know what to charge people. So I just watched one of the bigger chiropractors who was seeing a high volume. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. So we opened up, we were charging $8 a visit. And for the second member of the family, it was 6. And I think it capped out somewhere in there. So, we had a lot of families coming in, and we got relatively busy pretty quickly. Fast forward a couple of years, and insurance became a bigger thing. There was more companies who were, paying for chiropractic. And, so we decided, well, maybe we'll take the insurance thing. So we started to work with insurances in the initial parts of it. And, we could raise the fees, but the people would pay less because the insurance picked up the difference. And that was great. The old saying, and many of you heard of what's called the Mercedes 80s, because you could charge a relatively high fee. Even by today's standards, it would be a little bit higher. And even if you didn't collect any co-payments and deductibles, you waived all kind of stuff, you would still be taking in a fair amount of money on this, until insurance companies got a little smarter on the thing and said, no, we're going to start asking questions and require reports. And then not long after that, HMOs came in, and that limited everything. The reason I'm mentioning this was because in the earliest days, a lot of my friends were they called themselves very principled chiropractors. They were very excited about chiropractic, about reaching the masses. And the environment by which they practiced, how you got paid or what you had to do or the hoops you had to jump through for state boards and stuff, changed as time went on. And what I realized that there was a significant difference between what they were saying they believed in and what was actually deep inside of them. And not to say that they were faking it, they were locked into the dogma of practicing chiropractic, not the principle of chiropractic. Now, if I can give you kind of an example, and this is not to diverge too far away, but just to give you an idea on a personal level, I was raised as a Catholic. Okay, I went to church every Sunday, and not because I had the desire to go to church every Sunday as a kid, but because they took attendance. I went to Catholic school, and they took attendance in church to make sure you were there. And, you had to learn all the catechisms in Catholic school, and they tested you on them. And the reality of it is, I did all the things. I dressed the way you're supposed to do, did all the things you're supposed to do in Catholic school. But the reality is I never got the message about God because I was locked into that. You see, it was more of a rule and a test than it was a deep-seated internal belief. So, of course, when I became of age not to be able to do that, I didn't do it at all, And only later on did I then realize that I was lacking something, and then got involved as someone of faith. Accepted Christ in my life, and basically I realized the difference in my life between religion and faith. See, in many cases, religion can be the way you express faith. And if you have the faith and it's part of the religion, great. But many times the religion can be separate than the faith, meaning that you're locked into the religion and the rules and everything. You're not hooked into the faith that's actually behind that. And in chiropractic, that is really very, very true with a lot of young practitioners. They get locked into the dogma. They hear what their friends are saying, and they start to repeat it, and they start to and I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to be like that. And they can say all the right things, but it never got inside of them. They never accepted it. Sid used to say, when you accept chiropractic in full faith, your life and your practice take on new meaning. He didn't say when you accept the dogma. He said when you accepted chiropractic in full faith, meaning the principle interiorly. When that happens, when it's into you, then what takes place is the things that come in from the outside, the changes that take place, don't affect your core with your principle. you could adapt to them and it not affect your faith. You see, we've gone through many iterations as far as, in my, it'll be, uh, it'll be 43 years coming up this year in practice. And I've gone through a lot of iterations of how I did that. In the earliest of days, it was $8 a visit. Everybody came in, they paid on that visit, they went. Later on, we started to do more insurances, and so that everybody paid less than that per visit, and the insurance gave me a whole bunch of money. That was cool. And then as that started to dry up, and HMOs and PPOs and every other O started to come around, it started to be where, okay, I got some insurance payment, but then people would pay me in a prepay plan where they would pay, and whatever would happen for so many weeks and then so many weeks longer, et cetera, et cetera. Then I moved up to Georgia, and when I opened a practice, I said, well, I'm going to go back to what I used to do originally, and I went to a $10 visit. You got to pay per visit. In fact, you pay when you come in the door, and then you get adjusted. And then I went from that to, it kept altering to where, now most of my patients are on a monthly visit. They're paying per month, and they get chiropractic in my office for that on a wellness program. And it's hybrided because I actually do take insurance in the first so many, like 12 weeks is all we'll take the insurance for. And then they got to be on one of the programs. Now, the thing is, the care that I render and have rendered since I opened my office, other than an improvement in techniques, because you try to get better all the time, hasn't really changed from day one in my office to yesterday. Okay. It's pretty much the same concept. Specific correction of subluxation, an examination, x-rays in my office, and then a care plan to correct subluxations followed by wellness plan. That has never changed. The message that I give, Monday we did a doctor's report, a group report. Granted, in the era of COVID, we've altered that, but we still do it. We just altered how we do it so that everybody there feels safe. I actually do more of them because we cut the crowd down, and spaced them out a little bit. I know there's a lot of argument in chiropractic about, is this real? Is that real? The mask and all that. The fear that people have is real. So I'm going to quell that a little bit for them. But I still don't alter the message. The message that I give, and my doctor's reports have always been a little bit of an AV experience. I never was one for doing a doctor's report, a talking head, meaning like you see now, my head's talking, my hands are moving, I'm Italian, and then hold up a spine and say, look at the bone out of place. I've always been about some audio visuals. In my earliest days, it was a carousel projector and a slide, a screen that came down, and then we would show slides. And then later on, PowerPoint. Now it's on a 65-inch TV that we do a full PowerPoint animated whole 9 yards in my doctor's report. But the concept never changed. The information never changed. It updated, but it never really changed. The principle never changed. Because, and I know that the most successful practices, and I know that the practices that have been consistent over the years, and the doctors, even if they had multiple, even if they moved and had different practices, their approach, if they were there, their principle didn't change. That's because they weren't locked into the dogma. If you get locked into the dogma only, then when you're faced with something from the outside, you try to resist any kind of a change into how you deliver your office. And you wind up either changing your principle or just totally abandoning everything. And I've seen that too often. I've seen people who were, what I thought were solid, innate DE chiropractors wind up often some other strange thing. And when we were together in many of the early years with some of those chiropractors, they were like gun ho. Everything I would say, they would say it was the same. But I realized that they were in it dogmatically. They were locked into the rules of what a principal chiropractor should look like, as opposed to owning it, which allows you to then to adapt practice. And the reason I mention, and when I say adapt practice, I don't mean the care. I mean, maybe how you get paid or maybe how your office lays out. I've had room adjusting. That's how I started. I had separate rooms. I didn't know it was anything different than that. I had an open adjusting area. We did that for a number of years where we had open area, 4 tables, and just walked around the tables. And now we have room adjusting again. And the only reason is because the place I rented had rooms. So, okay, I'm not going to knock down walls. I leave it the way it is. That's what an 8 set up. That's what I'm working with. It didn't matter either way. And I know when I went from rooms to open adjusting, I could remember my wife questioning the concept, you're always doing it this way. You can do it this way. If you're the same, it doesn't matter. People say, how could you train people to get adjusted in an open area? Because you do. I mean, if you own it, they don't have a problem with it. The principle doesn't change. How you deliver the adjustment relative to the office setup should matter. It shouldn't matter if you're adjusting them in a parking lot, as long as you're doing a good adjustment. That's not the important part of it. I mean, think about years ago, they had mobile clinics. Sid used to have one of those mobile clinics, go into like Atlanta with the mobile clinic. People would come in, they had an x-ray in there, I believe, and they would adjust people. And he was pretty much upper cervical. So, the delivery essence of it is not the key. The delivery essence of it can be the dogma. And I know people who will say it's not principled if you don't do 100% cash. I don't get that. The adjustment is separate from whether or not you got paid or not. Okay, that's the business aspect. Sid talks about the business hand and the heart hand. That's the business end of it. How you get paid shouldn't affect the principal part of it. In 1986, I had the privilege of going with the Goodwill, the Life Sports Chiropractic team to the Goodwill games in Moscow. I think there were like 19 of us. Sid had set this up. And so we flew over there with Sid, and Dr. Sigafus was there, and a number of people, DE people were there. And we basically set up a clinic in the Cosmos Hotel on the 16th floor in the 45th room. I thought it was going to be something on the ground floor where everybody would see us. And, over there, it wasn't like we were charging anything. It was totally free care. Nobody had to pay anything. Interestingly enough, we had a doctor there who was a sports chiropractor. He was trained by an association that gives out a degree in sports chiropractic. And so he basically was there for about the first day or two and had a real problem with me and the other DE guys because we were bringing people in and adjusting them, doing the analysis. We didn't have x-rays, obviously, but we were doing the analysis and adjusting them and sending them on their way. And he was like, he actually brought a converter and a little TENS unit, a little thingy to do electric stim and stuff like that. And I'm like, and at one point he questioned me and he says, well, how could you do this? I mean, you're not a real sports chiropractor. And he said, well, how could you get, this? I've been trained by blank, and I've taken care of athletes. And I said, I've taken care of some athletes too, but they have subluxations like the people who walk in here and everybody else. And if I'm really good at correcting subluxations, which is what I'm doing, then it shouldn't matter if they're an athlete or somebody cleaning the room or a politician or a movie star or just a person up the street. If I'm correcting subluxations, none of the rest of that matters. They have a subluxation. Now, what they do in their life affecting the subluxation, that's a different story. But my correction of the subluxation is still geared around correcting the subluxation. I wasn't locked into the dogma of you had to be, have a degree to do it. Like kids. I practiced before there was a pediatric association. Okay. I took care of kids before Larry Webster started ICPA, before ICA started the ICA Pediatric Council. I've been taking care of kids. Yes, I had some training from Larry before he started all of that. Yes, I had some training from people before Larry, before he started all of his stuff. So, I've been taking kids since I got out of practice, since I got out of chiropractic school. And I don't have any pediatric specialties. I've done thousands and thousands of children, but I'm still correcting subluxations. That part of it doesn't change. That part of it never altered anywhere. And the reason I bring this up relative to today is we are in what I will call a possible practice transition time frame. And what I mean by that is this. Some of us do, some of us don't pay attention to what's going on in the political worlds and things like that. But at this point, a decade ago, a healthcare system called, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, came into effect, and it didn't seemingly have a big effect on chiropractic necessarily, but you started to hear noise, especially in the last couple of years, of something called Medicare for All. And I don't know, and I'm not going to take a political stance on it. That is totally unimportant as far as, this discussion here. But Medicare covers chiropractic for a chiropractic adjustment for the correction of subluxation. That's what's in the law, by the way. And it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't pay for examination, doesn't pay for x-rays, anything like that. But there's a push to make, and one part of it, I tell you, will probably happen, is there's a push to make Medicare and opt-in so that people who were buying insurance can buy into Medicare. I think that will probably happen. But if the push for Medicare for all does happen, that means every man, woman, and child is covered by Medicare, which means every man, woman, and child is covered for chiropractic adjustments. Now, I'd love to see x-rays and exams, but let's just start with what's there. Every man, woman, and child in the United States having the ability to come to a chiropractor and have the government pay for a good part of that care. There are systems like that in Canada and in other parts of the world where, people come in and the automatic thought process is great. I'm gonna be a part of this thing, and they get reimbursed for it. Now, granted, you have all the rules that are on top and everything else that could be. That's a fight that we'll have, but everybody has access now. Regardless of insurances, my care hasn't changed. There go my dogs. Knew that was going to happen once. But regardless of insurances, my care hasn't changed. If they come in and they have an automobile accident, if they come in and they have very good insurance or very bad insurance, they have no insurance, my recommendations for care don't change because I'm correcting subluxation, and that shouldn't change at all. What needs to be done to correct the subluxations and what needs to be done to correct subluxation, regardless of the reimbursement end of it. And that's not always true in a lot of chiropractic offices, and that's the unfortunate reality of it. But if everybody has the ability to get a reimbursement, we could say my patients don't care. My patients are coming in and paying me. And you know what? Mine are too. But how many who aren't our patients? How many who are out there who are making a decision about whether to go to a chiropractor or to their MD for some pain pills and whatever, make that decision because, well, let me see what my insurance covers. You know what? It's a lot. It's a lot. I can remember years ago, and I was a student, a dear friend of mine, or a friend of our family, she was having significant lower back issues. And, as a chiropractic student, I wanted her to go see a chiropractor. So I finally convinced her to go see a chiropractor. He took x-rays and she had a terrible, scoliotic issue, and it was degenerative in places. He was explaining to her, it's going to take time to work with this, and you're going to have to get adjusted regularly. I mean, he was doing the right things, And I can remember after they left there and being at their house, I was at their house at that particular moment, and she and her husband were discussing this. And the discussion came down to, well, I don't think we're going to do that because my insurance will pay for surgery. Okay. And this woman wound up getting a Harrington rod down her spine because the insurance paid for it, as opposed to the chiropractic care, which there was no coverage. And even with the out of pocket, the insurance actually was cheaper for the Harrington rod, the way they worked it out. He worked for an insurance company. But they were willing to have that massive an intrusion placed in. Now, by the way, the surgery was unsuccessful. The rod eventually broke loose, as the old ones often did. And so she basically had to learn to live with the pain forever, until she passed. But didn't get chiropractic because there was a difference in who paid for it. Now, that looks to me like it's going to come to pass. Now, whether or not, and if something else comes, okay. The point I'm trying to make here is that if we change our practices, and I'm talking about the reimbursement part, if we change our care and our focus and our education because of what takes place outside coming in, how it's reimbursed, that means we were locked into the dogma. That means that we weren't focused on the principle of correcting subluxations, regardless of what it's paid for, regardless of how they come in, regardless. Sid used to say, I accept all patients, regardless of condition or financial ability to pay. I mean, I don't hear that as much. Okay. I accept all cases, regardless of condition or financial ability to pay. That doesn't matter if it's cash, doesn't matter if it's insurance, doesn't matter if it's Medicare, doesn't matter, whatever. If we have the principle within, if we understand the chiropractic principle of making a huge change in people, and therefore having a huge change in the community, and therefore a huge change in the country, a huge change in the world, then what we want to do is focus on correction of that subluxation. And I know it's easy to say it, right? It's a little bit harder on a lot of cases to get that done because a lot of times life gets in the way. Life is something that takes place all the time around you. I mean, some of the pictures that Katrina showed here were pictures of me and my grandchildren. I tell you, that's a big interference. You know, grandchildren suck up a lot of time. They're beautiful. I never realized how great grandchildren were until I had some. You know, there's a bumper sticker in Florida that says, "If I knew how great grandchildren was, I would have had them first." You know, but they take up a lot of time. Family takes up time. I understand that. It's okay because family really should be a little primo on your mind, you know, but it shouldn't sway you away from principle. It shouldn't have to. You can remain in the principle, own the principle, it be a part of you, and still deal with family. I mean, some of the biggest successful practices I know of are run by people who are good family people, who have a good family, who have a loving relationship. If it's dogmatic, a lot of times there's other problems in there. You know, and chiropractors, many times they want to, you know, oh, I want to be principled, so I'll follow all the rules and I'll do this and I'll read and I'll do. Wait a minute. It's not even that required. You know, if you own it within, if you accept it, as Sid said, in full faith, your life and your practice take on a new meaning. That's the key here. We are always going to be faced with changes in practice. Now, the scenario I talked about Medicare covering everything, I don't know that that's going to happen. And honestly, it doesn't matter, you know, because if it does, my practice style, not my care, not my correction of subluxation, not my principle, may adapt, you know, to the new, everybody's getting chiropractic and the government's paying for it. Great. Ain't going to change me. Right. And if it doesn't, or if it comes in and leaves chiropractic out and nobody's covered, okay. Ain't going to change my care. Not going to change my recommendations. Not going to change my correction of subluxation on people or trying to get families under care. And I'm still going to be in my office doing a doctor's report and doing a lecture with a clicker and a large screen TV, unless they have new technology and we have a hologram and R2D2 puts up, hope me Obi-Wan Canucks, correct my subluxation. No, let's not go there. But I'm always going to be telling the story and always going to be excited about chiropractic and the principle. How I practice, my hours are different. Okay. You know, the routine of patients a little bit different. Yeah, but not the care. Not the care. Not what I think I need to do to correct the subluxations. Those are the things that if you own the principle should never have to change inside of you. And there's a certain piece to that. Because if you can do that, if you can stay within that principle, there's a piece that transcends having to worry about what takes place, you know. It's a saying in chiropractic, and I'm pretty sure it's attributable to BJ. It might be constant too. I take care of God's people, and God takes care of me. That is just so true. You know what you put out, you get back tenfold or 100-fold. It's just so true. You know, there are so many times in life where we get in a little situation, we get a little bit worried about this or that, or something's taking place on a personal level. We get a little nervous. And then what happens is somehow innate God steps in and it gets quelled. I can't tell you, I've often said I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. And it's not for anything else that's happened. I can say my grandchildren, that's why I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I can say it's because of my wonderful wife, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. There's a lot of things. I do think luck is something that just you understand and you have it happen. You know what I mean? But luck means being enamored with what happened around you, regardless of what it was. You know, if it's a rainy day, I'm lucky because it's a rainy day. If it's a sunny day, I'm lucky because it's a sunny day. You know, that kind of a scenario in your office. I'm lucky because I'm a chiropractor. You know, as I grew up with a lot of friends who were into different things, and like as many of you were too. And I'm sure you can all remember people from your high school days and maybe your college days. I didn't have much of a college day. I went to a lot of classes in a very short amount of time so I can get into chiropractic school. But in my high school days, I can remember a lot of people who were in my classes and people hung out who are dead. And they didn't die recently, they died a while ago from drugs, from car accidents, from motorcycle accidents. Their life went a different path. I have friends who were close friends of mine who were hopeless drug addicts, and I don't even know where they are anymore, if they're alive. And we've all run into that. And we've all actually, at one point in our lives, made the statement, there but for the grace of God go I. Your life, based upon some small thing, could have gone in a different direction. And somehow you wound up in chiropractic. And somehow, in being a chiropractor, you wound up on this call. And you wound up involved in the DE group, and you wound up being a principled chiropractor. Well, all you have to do is continue to let that into you and realize how special and how lucky you actually are. Because you could have had a lot of other things happen to you. You could have gone in a lot of different directions. Everything in your life could have been different there, but for the grace of God. And in that happening, realize how special and how important it is for you to take the gift that you got and to make the most of it by changing lives, by correcting subluxations and turning on the power of God within people, by removing interference and allowing them to function at a higher level and correcting subluxations. Regardless of what goes on around, regardless of payment, of office, of COVID, of whatever, regardless of anything else, you stay to the course and you correct subluxations. Not dogmatic. You can adapt how you deliver it. Principled. And if you stay there, you accept chiropractic in full faith, your life and your practice will have special meaning. So that's my message for tonight. I want to thank you for having me. And I'm not sure how Katrina or Brian jump in here, but thank you for having me.
Bobby, thank you so much. We appreciate your message. I should have checked to see who is next week. Maybe Kat, you probably don't have something for that, but next week we'll have another great speaker. So tune in Tuesday night, 9:00. Bobby, we love you. Thank you so much. We'll see everybody next week. Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you.